So you're thinking about moving to Jacksonville, Florida, but don't pack your bags just yet. In today's video, what I want to cover are the top 5 reasons why you probably shouldn't move to Jacksonville. And don't worry, I'm not going to be super negative about it. I'm also going to cover some of the positives as well. But I think these top 5 things are things that you need to know about before you make the move. What's up, everyone? It's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, Florida. And if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest here in Northeastern Florida, make sure you reach out to me and my team. All we try to do is give you the information so that you can make an educated decision on what you want to do, which is buy, sell, or invest here in Northeastern Florida. So in today's video, I'm going to cover the top 5 things that I think people should know about before they make the move to Jacksonville. And believe me, guys, there's a lot of great things about Jacksonville, but it doesn't come without the negatives. And I want to make sure that you know about it before you make the move. And if you are looking to make the move, maybe this gives you a good bit of information that you need, and you can reach out to me if you're making a decision. So the first thing that I want to talk about that I think is probably the most important thing to know before moving to Jacksonville is going to be the crime in the area. Now, I live in St. Johns County, just south of Duvall County, which is the majority of the city of Jacksonville. And it is much different living here in St. Johns County than it is in Duvall County. The crime is literally double or maybe like 2.5 times of what we see here in St. Johns County. But that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Now, there are certain pockets of Jacksonville that have worse crime than others. There's plenty of areas that are extremely safe to be in, but there's other parts that you know when you go into that neighborhood that it's not a safe environment to be in. And just to give you a well-rounded answer, I've been all throughout Jacksonville. This isn't the best neighborhood in the world, but I've never felt in danger. Oh! Typically, all these things are happening within small pockets of the city of Jacksonville, and that's no different than any other city that you're looking at. But that's also something that you've probably heard in the past, that like Jacksonville is one of the best places to get shot or something like that. And I mean, of course, there is crime here in the city of Jacksonville, but there are plenty of neighborhoods that are just fine and beautiful and very safe to live in. So if we take a look at the Jacksonville crime map, I'm using Neighborhood Scout. So this is not from the state of Florida. This is not anything doing with the city of Jacksonville's crime statistics. This is just what they're pulling here. So this isn't actually from a state website or a city website, but I still think it has some relevant data that you need to know. Looking at the map here, you're going to see most of the crime is going to be centered around downtown Jacksonville, and that's also another negative we'll cover later in the video if you're looking at this heat map of Duvall County, which is the city of Jacksonville. Now, I also want to take that and I want to compare it with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the actual statistics of what's going on here in Jacksonville. I'm going to compare it to a couple of areas within the state of Florida, such as maybe Tampa and Miami, but I also want to cover what it looks like versus St. Johns County, which is just south of us, and many people do decide to live in St. Johns County, especially in the northern part of St. Johns County, where they have access to Jacksonville for the jobs, but they also get all the benefits of living here in St. Johns County, like our great schools and also the safety. So as you can see, the main thing that we want to take a look at, now this is from December of 2021, so this is a 2022 report. We don't have a newer one for it, but we're going to take a look at total population, and then we're going to take a look at crime rate per 100,000 in population, which is a little further right on the chart. So Duvall County is right down here. In 2021, we had roughly 1 million people in Duvall County, and that's definitely grown since then. And the crime rate is right around 3,500 crimes per 100,000 people. So that's 3.5% of people are essentially committing crimes here in Duvall County. Now, if you compare that with Miami, we had 2.7 million people in Miami-Dade County with the same amount of crime, roughly about just under 2,740. So we have more crime than Miami-Dade just based on 100,000 per capita. So 100,000 population, they're getting about 2,740 crimes per 100,000 population. Now, if you compare that to other areas like St. Johns County, so if we take a look at St. Johns County, which is where I live and where St. Augustine is, you can see that in 2021 we had roughly 283,000 people. I think as of right now we're at 330,000 people, so it's grown pretty significantly since then, and we had roughly 666 crimes per 100,000 people. So literally 3 times more, 4 times more in Duvall County than we see here in St. Johns County. And in the same breath, if we're going to compare this to Tampa, which is a little bit bigger of a city than Duvall County, the city of Jacksonville. But if we take a look at the city of Tampa, which is also part of Hillsborough County, in 2021, Hillsborough County had roughly 1.49 million people in there, so 1.5 million, and they don't have the statistics for it, but just the year before where they had 1.478 million, they had roughly 1,400 crimes per 1.478. So in general, Duvall County has a lot more crime than the majority of the major metropolitan areas within the state of Florida. Like I said before, I mean, that is really in a targeted area of, the surrounding area of downtown Jacksonville. And I would say outside of that, it's going to be very comparable to pretty much anywhere else in the state of Florida or the country. Now, the one thing that you can say about Jacksonville and the city of Jacksonville is that it's the largest city by landmass in the continental United States. So it's covering a much larger area than it is for every other county that we just covered. Now, of course, the populations are going to be about the same, so you should be able to compare based on 100,000 population what those crimes are going to look like, but it is covering a much bigger area than many of the other counties we just covered. But on to the good things. So Jacksonville has grown tremendously, especially since the pandemic years of 2020, 2021. So we've seen a lot of changes just in the past 5 years, and you can also see that in a reflection of crime. So crime is trending downward in Jacksonville. For example, homicides in 2024 are down 49% from 2022. And then shootings in 2024 are down 8.6% since 2023. Violent crime is down 8.7% since 2023. So it seems that Jacksonville is trending in a positive direction. And if we're talking about crimes per 100,000 people, the first thing was homicides, so down 50%. So hopefully that's not a huge amount of that 3,300 number that we covered of that 100,000. But shootings and violent crime down almost 10%, which is a good thing to see. Now, I'm not saying that should give you the warm and fuzzies about moving to Jacksonville, but it is important for you to know, and it's really important for you to research the areas you're considering. Now, the second thing that I think you should know about before moving to Jacksonville is going to be your risk of hurricanes and also the general weather here in the state of Florida. Now, of course, we're in the state of Florida. We're going to have a more tropical climate than you're going to see throughout the rest of the United States. But here in northeastern Florida, we actually are a little bit insulated from some of the major problems that the state of Florida sees, like extremely hot tropical weather like you'll see in South Florida. Really, they get pretty much no winter, no fall, no spring. It's hot year-round in the southern part of Florida, whereas northeastern Florida, we tend to get a little bit of a winter. For example, this weekend's coming up. Probably when this video will be posted, we're going to have about a 30 to 40 degree nighttime temperature, which is a cold snap here in our area. We typically don't see that. We might see that for like a week or two, maybe 2 weeks. At night we'll see those type of temperatures, but typically during the day you're going to see around 75 to 85 degrees throughout the entire winter, which is super favorable for our area. Now, when it comes to the summers, you have June, July, August, which are the dog days of summer. We're just as tropical and as hot as the rest of the East Coast. So I mean, I have friends in Philly, I have friends in New York, and my dad's still up in New York, and the temperature really when it comes down to summer is the same. It's hot and humid, it's around 90 degrees. So it's really comparable to the rest of the East Coast. But in terms of the state of Florida, it does get a little bit more humid here probably, where you have 100% humidity. You walk out, you feel like you got a wet blanket on, and the air is just harder to breathe because there's just so much water in the air. So you got to be ready for that. And because we are in a tropical climate, we do also get hit with hurricanes. So you guys probably saw that Hurricane Milton rip through the state of Florida, really going through Tampa, then through Orlando, and then going out to the Atlantic. But we also got hit with several other hurricanes this year, and that's something that you definitely need to account for if you're moving to this area. Hurricanes can be super scary if you're not used to them, you're not accustomed to them. Even if you're used to them, you can get scared of them. I've lived here a good portion of my life, and it still gives me a little bit of maybe this could happen, maybe that could happen, because really at a lot of points it can be unpredictable. Along with hurricanes, you also see tornadoes start to spin off, and that actually scares me more than the hurricane itself. You can predict a hurricane and prepare for a hurricane sometimes a week or 2 weeks out, depending on the tracking, right? So you'll know about it way in advance. So when a hurricane comes through and hits you, you should be pretty well prepared. You've either evacuated or you're prepared to hunker down. You've got food just in case the power goes out. You've got batteries and flashlights just in case the power goes out. But then you also have tornadoes that spur off of the hurricanes as well, which those are not predictable at all. And they've run through several neighborhoods. I know a realtor down in South Florida in Jupiter who her house was fine, but her neighbor's house right across the street, hurricane went right through it, and they pretty much lost everything. which is super devastating. But here's the good thing about living in Jacksonville when it comes down to hurricanes. Your risk compared to the rest of the state of Florida, when you look at the past 124 years, is much, much lower. Here in northeastern Florida, we don't tend to get hit with the high Category 5, Category 4 hurricanes direct hit. A lot of times they come in through South Florida, they come in on the west coast, they go into land, and then they start to lose speed by the time they get to us. In the past 124 years in Duvall County, they've only seen 4 hurricanes make landfall in Duvall County. Now, if you compare that with Miami, that's looking at like 18 or 22 hurricanes since the last 124 years. And there's been studies about, are hurricanes increasing, are the frequency increasing? The frequency doesn't seem to be increasing, but the intensity of hurricanes since 1984 has seemed to increase. I'm not sure if that's because we have better tracking now, we have more data than we did before, or if it's just become more front of our mind, or it's because of climate change. Either way you look at it, it's something you need to be prepared for if you're moving to the state of Florida, and you're moving to Jacksonville specifically. And that is one of the bigger bonuses of living in the city of Jacksonville. Yes, you're still going to get hurricanes, but statistically speaking, you're not going to get hit with a major one. All of the homes in the area are only built to withstand 120-mile-per-hour winds, because that's the average of the highest wind speed that we get here. Where if you go to South Florida, everything has to be built with concrete block, because they're getting hit with heavy hurricanes all the time. And the third thing you need to know about the city of Jacksonville is the traffic and urban sprawl. Now, I already mentioned this, but Jacksonville is the largest city by landmass in the continental United States. So it spans, probably from south to north, it's probably like 30 or 40 miles if you're just drawing a straight line as the bird flies. So in terms of getting around Jacksonville, it can be very easy, but it's also very spread out. So driving 20 minutes to go and do something in Jacksonville is very normal. And a lot of people, they don't really want to leave their pocket of where they live, because outside of 20 minutes is just too far for them. That is starting to change as we develop into more of a metropolitan area here in Jacksonville, because Jacksonville has seen some major changes, which I'm going to cover here in a second. That is going to turn it into more of a city that you would think of when you're moving to a metropolitan area. Like if you're moving to a Tampa, you're moving to Orlando or Miami, you're thinking like, oh, there's a beautiful downtown in that city. The area was kind of built to be a commuter city. The suburban sprawl of having neighborhoods and suburbs way outside the city of Jacksonville has been like that really for the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There's not too many people that hang out in downtown Jacksonville. And just to give you a good idea, the main thing to do in Jacksonville for the longest time when I was a kid and in the past like 10, 20 years was they had the Landing in Center City, Jacksonville. And just to give you a good idea of what the restaurant was there, it was Hooters, was kind of like the crown jewel of the city of Jacksonville at the Landing. And there's nothing wrong with Hooters, got great wings, but it's not something that you want to see as like, hey, you go down to downtown Jacksonville, this is where you hang out, and oh, by the way, let's go get some Hooters, let's go get some wings. Not exactly what you want to see. Nice. So downtown Jacksonville is starting to go through a little bit of a redevelopment. We've all been waiting for it to turn this corner, and it seems that it's starting to happen. There are a couple of major projects that I think are going to really reshape how the city of Jacksonville is viewed and how the lifestyle of living in the city of Jacksonville is going to change. Because like I said, pretty much no one hangs out in downtown Jacksonville. Everyone commutes there for work and then goes home and then hangs out in their respective neighborhoods and suburbs outside of Jacksonville, just like St. Johns County. A lot of people move to the northern part of St. Johns County, whether that's Ponte Vedra Beach or that's St. John's, or that's just northern St. Augustine. Maybe you've heard of the communities like Nocatee or Beacon Lake, or Sawgrass or Shearwater, Rivertown. All these communities are in the northern part of St. Johns County, so if you're working in Jacksonville, it makes it really easy to go back and forth. So there are 3 major projects that I really think are going to reshape how people look at the city of Jacksonville. The first one is going to be Everbank Stadium. So they just got approved to do the Stadium of the Future, which is going to be a $1.4 billion investment into remaking the Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium into the Stadium of the Future. This is going to start in 2025, and it's going to seat around 63,000 people, and it's also going to have a translucent shade over the top of the stadium. So one of the major problems of the Jag Stadium now is really depending on the sun. Like I said earlier, we do have some hot days, especially in that later part, beginning of the season, but later part of the summer, beginning of football season, days can get up to 90 degrees and 100% humidity. And if you're in that path of the sun, you're just getting roasted for 3 to 4 hours during a football game. So the translucent shade is definitely needed for this stadium, and I think it's going to be a fantastic add. And it's also going to spur more development around that portion of Jacksonville, which is right along the riverfront. The next thing that they're doing is a riverfront. So in many cities, the riverfront is a walkable path that you can jog. You can just go on a walk down there. There's a couple restaurants around. Here in Jacksonville, we just don't have that. And it's kind of like a big miss for the city of Jacksonville because no one wants to hang out downtown because there's nothing to do. So they've put a whole plan together so that they can change the north and south bank of the riverfront that runs through Jacksonville. The St. Johns River runs right through the center city of Jacksonville, and that's where the downtown is. And they have some big plans to make it a lot more friendly for the locals in the neighborhood. But a couple of key projects are going to be Riverfront Plaza, it's going to be the Shipyards West, and Metropolitan Park. They're all aimed at maximizing public access and reconnecting the community to the St. Johns River. This is all a part of the Riverfront 2025 A Look Ahead plan, which is aiming to make an iconic riverfront and really make Jacksonville a metropolitan area that people want to live in and hang out in. Whereas of right now, that's not the case. You don't really, I've gone down to Jacksonville maybe a handful of times. Typically it's to go watch sporting events or a music event or a comedy event, something like that. But then once I'm done, I go to a neighborhood that I like a little bit further outside of Jacksonville. The third major thing that you need to know about is going to be the urban core development projects. There's two major projects that you need to know within the urban core. The first one is going to be Emerald Station in Springfield. This project aims to create public meeting spaces, offices, residences, and tree-shaded areas, transforming neglected parts of the city. And then we also have the Gateway Jacks project. Also part of the urban core revitalization, this initiative focuses on developing mixed-use spaces that blend residential, commercial, and public areas to foster community engagement and economic growth. And the fourth reason that you may not want to live in Jacksonville is going to be that there is no public transportation. Really, there's one monorail that runs through the city of Jacksonville, but it's barely used from what I know of, but they are looking to expand on that. And like I mentioned before, this city really is a commuter city. No one really hangs out in downtown like you think of in a lot of metropolitan areas. People think of downtown as this bustling, vibrant, walkable area where you see a whole bunch of people hanging out on their time off on the weekends, and really it's a ghost town during most of those times. But they are trying to change that with a whole bunch of the projects like I just covered, but they are also looking to add some more public transportation to downtown Jacksonville. The first thing they're trying to do to change the public transportation in downtown Jacksonville is going to be the Ultimate Urban Circulator project, which is aiming to add on to that monorail Skyrail to be able to make Jacksonville a little bit more of a commuter-friendly city. The goal with this project is to modernize the existing Skyway and replace the trains with autonomous trains that can go between surrounding neighborhoods. And the second thing that you need to know about that's going to help increase the public transportation in Jacksonville is going to be the Emerald Trail. The city of Jacksonville was awarded a $147 million grant to include 30 miles of trails that can connect the neighborhoods through walking paths and biking paths that make it a lot easier and much easier to live in downtown St. Augustine and the surrounding area and be able to commute without having to use a car. So I think that is a major thing that the city of Jacksonville needed. They also need more green space to hang out in and just really relax. But that is going to be a big portion of the development in downtown Jacksonville. And the fifth reason you may not want to move to Jacksonville is going to be the surrounding cultural and social scene here in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, like I mentioned before, Jacksonville is a growing metropolitan city. It is going to take some time before it reaches the level of a Tampa or an Orlando or a Miami. Probably a lot of time before it gets to a Miami type of situation. But if you're coming down and looking for like a nightclub scene, you're coming to look for maybe a whole bunch of diverse restaurants, it's not exactly there yet. The restaurants are coming. They're really pretty much here. We have a ton of great food here in northeastern Florida, and it's way different than it was 5-10 years ago. So we are growing in that respect, but really the nightlife scene, we don't have too much of. So if you're trying to find that in a new city and relocate to a new city, Jacksonville is going to be kind of a tough sell. Now, if you want to go to like maybe a strip club or something, plenty of those in the city of Jacksonville, but they don't have typical like dance clubs, nightclubs that you would see in a lot of other areas and a lot of other cities throughout the country. But with that being said, I just covered a whole bunch of other projects that are going to be done here in the next couple of years, and I imagine that all the things that are missing from the city of Jacksonville are going to be added by private businesses and entrepreneurs that are seeing Jacksonville as a different city than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago, and seeing it as more of the city of the future. Aside from that, there are also like other markets just outside of downtown Jacksonville, and Jacksonville is a huge place, so there's always a festival going on, there's always an arts market, there's always music being played somewhere within the city of Jacksonville. You just have to look for it. So guys, those are the 5 reasons you should not move to Jacksonville. I just wanted to cover all the major things that you should know about if you are considering a move to northeastern Florida, maybe even St. Augustine. But if you are looking to buy, sell, or invest here in northeastern Florida, make sure you reach out to me and my team. All we try to do is give you the information so that you can make an educated decision on what you want to do, which is buy, sell, or invest here in northeastern Florida. Until next time, guys, I'll see you soon.